It's a great resource for up-and-coming creators to hear what it's like going slowly insane editing every day.
This is Emily, but you likely know her from her channel, Micro for Nerds. She is known for her awesome camera-related content, and I especially have been enjoying her compact carry camera-related videos. But on top of that, I have always admired her for her editing skills, which is of course why I wanted to get her on the show to talk shop.
Even down to like hard cutting every or every break and trying to hide them with B-roll as much as possible. I tried to keep things quite pacey because I think you owe it to the audience to not waste their time, and I want it to be as concise as possible.
So without further ado, let's get nerdy and talk editing in YouTube with Emily from Micro for Nerds. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I just gotta say, I'm very excited for today's episode because I definitely have been donning the nerdy hat. It's become a big part of the Jake Felzine identity, which it always has been, but I'm embracing it. And you have nerd in your name. I'm so excited to talk with you today, get nerdy about editing, cameras, wherever the wind takes us. Just thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I'm always up for a nerdy conversation.
So to kick us off today, I like to do a little rapid fire round. Again, there's going to be probably a few editing questions and hopefully some random ones that are a little more Emily flavored. So let's just start with that. Obviously, here on the Jake Felzine channel, we are all about editing. That's kind of just the niche I'm in right now. So the first question I really am dying to know is, what is your NLE of choice right now to create and make videos?
I am a Final Cut Pro user through and through, probably from my wedding videography background, because it's just the quickest. It's the most efficient. I know it like the back of my hand, and yeah, I love it.
I didn't know that because I tried to do my research, and I'm not sure that you've ever actually talked about it, so I couldn't find if you, and maybe you had, and I just didn't quite dig deep enough, but I was like, I really am curious what she uses, and we're going to talk about that. So, okay. A fellow Final Cut user. I'm so excited we'll dive deep into that later for sure. My next rapid fire question is, do you typically find yourself finding music before you do an edit, or do you usually find it during or after as you're working on a project?
If it's more of a narrative piece, first. If it's just a camera review, then I'll find something that fits the vibe sort of as I go. As
long as I'm not stepping on any sponsorship toes, do you have a place that you really like getting music from right now in particular? And again, we can cut this so you don't have to answer if you can't.
Hashtag not sponsored, but I have used them for years and years and years. I am Team Soundstripe.
Soundstripe. Okay, awesome. I actually have never used them. So again, this is why I do the show, because now I get to go try something I hadn't tried before. Do you have a go-to snack when you're sitting down? I mean, editing in the chair can go for hours. You know, sometimes you gotta keep the momentum going against what your body is telling you. What keeps you going when you need it?
Do you know, I have a snack-free zone on this desk, but I am obsessed with like sparkling water. I've got a little fridge behind me, so if I'm flagging, I'll just grab some of that. Really boring.
No, I do. I love, like just a little bubble water. Man, it goes a long ways. Okay, not an editing question, but if you had to, and again, quickly, trying not to overthink it in rapid fire round, but if you had to tell me your favorite place you have photographed, what's the answer?
Oh, the Faroe Islands. It's beautiful.
Good. Hey, that's a great segue because we're going to talk about that video later.
Awesome.
Okay, next question. Did you ever go to film school or have any like formal background in any of this creative stuff? I was curious about that.
So I did my degree in sound design, and I'm pretty much self-taught when it comes to video.
Dang, very cool. Okay, sound design. Crap, mental note. We got to come back to that one. That's awesome. So I guess if you've been doing sound design since your degree, I was going to ask how long you've been editing and YouTubing. Is it since then or is it before then? Or after, I guess, for editing?
Literally since I started my channel, which is 7 years young now. So I've been video editing for 7 years.
Nice. Awesome. Dang, very cool. If you had to pick one, is there a YouTuber you refuse to miss right now? Every video they come out, you watch.
I put everything down when Gorks posts on his main channel. I'm obsessed with him. And I'm not even interested in like drawing, but I just think he's so talented and such a good storyteller that I'm just like, yeah, I'm going upstairs, I'm watching a video for 10 minutes.
He's disgusting. It's so,
Disgusting.
I'm with you. I've never been into drawing. I've never been into, well, I loved drawing as a kid, but of course, dorky, rudimentary stuff. But yeah, as far as like what he does, where it's like the real deal, I've never been into that. And again, I think it's just because he's such a renaissance man with both camera, lighting, editing, music choice. I mean, the whole thing is just such a treat to watch that it's
It is. He could be in any genre.
Art.
Yeah, he could be like making toasties or sandwiches, and I'd be like, I'm locked in. I want to see the final result.
Yeah, like the Gox PB&J channel. I'm watching every second of it or whatever, like I'm in. Okay, next question. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a controversial one, maybe not. Vertical video, yay or nay?
At the moment, nay. I've really tried earlier in this year to like give it a good old college try, and it doesn't move the needle as much as long form, and I just think my efforts are better elsewhere.
I've got one last rapid fire round question, the last one. And again, I want to caveat this question and say there is no explanation required on your part.
Okay.
You can just answer with nothing to it. What is your favorite camera right now?
The G9 Mark II. I didn't even know that was what I was going to say. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm in.
I love it. I love it. That is all I had for rapid fire. Those were all great answers. Really to kick us off, and kind of usually where I like to start with these conversations is just where is editing for you in the creative process in terms of just kind of your feelings towards it, how much you enjoy it? Because obviously you do a ton of it. You have been consistently making great videos with great editing for a very long time. Is it something that you kind of have to do? Is it something that you thoroughly enjoy? Like, I would just kind of love to kick this off knowing your thoughts in the creative process on where it fits, because I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, so editing for me is a huge portion of the whole process. And I love the flow state that you can get into when you start editing. Like, you can blink and half a day's gone. And I love comparing the idea that I had in my head versus how it ends up in the end. I think it's quite a satisfying thing. I just wish I could be more efficient at it, because it does take up most of my life.
Which is fascinating to hear you say that, because again, as a Final Cut user, again, so next question, have you edited with anything besides Final Cut, or has it just always been Final Cut from the beginning?
I've tried. I had a little bit with DaVinci. The whole interface of Premiere Pro I found quite intimidating. I tried to use it for a while to get on board with After Effects, and just thought, do you know what? I don't need to be that complicated. I'll just go back to Final Cut, where I know where everything is and everything's safe.
Totally. But I guess why and that's kind of what I was alluding to, is like, it's interesting to hear you say how much of a time suck it is, when I think you're probably using one of the most streamlined options for like speed and efficiency, right? Like, I don't know, again, like using DaVinci and whatnot, it's like, it's fantastic. It's great. And I think I've finally gotten over the hump where I'm pretty close speed wise, but I still to this day think that just the design of Final Cut is so good for just speed of thought. And, yeah, no, that's cool. And well, and two, like, I would also compliment like your sound design, like sound effects, music, which all makes sense because you said you got a degree in it. And I think that especially in Final Cut, you don't have as many graphical visual tools potentially to like get all thrown into the wind with. So I kind of think that like you seem to have leaned especially on what like is available to you as a skill set, which is that sound design piece. So let's dive into that. Like, walk me through your process there, how you feel about Signed, and maybe even take us back again to that degree that you got. I'm so fascinated about that.
Yeah, so it was a music slash sound design degree where it was half about sort of sound engineering for bands and in studios, and then half for media and film. So it's come in super handy for both like my wedding films and for YouTube. And I think with my wedding films, the sound design really set me apart because a lot of people do it like a video slideshow without any dialogue or without any diegetic sound from the day. Whereas if you can add a little bit of storytelling in and really lean into the sound, I think it can really elevate your work. I think it's something that a lot of people like disregard or don't find that it's as important, but I think it's as important as everything else.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. It's so important. Do you still do weddings as well then to this day? Like, is that something you still do on top of your YouTube stuff?
I did until maybe a year ago, but I'm a full-time YouTuber now. For my sins, I've just got one more wedding later in the year, but it's an old friend, so I'm coming out of retirement for one more.
We need like the Emily doc of like the last dance, but your wedding, your last wedding film. And you mentioned the diegetic sound. So can you give any specific examples for, again, maybe someone who's getting into a wedding film edit of what you would do there that you think set yours apart? Again, just kind of trying to glean some tips there as far as what that entails on the edit side.
Oh yeah, I think just keeping a decent shotgun mic on at all times and just keeping an ear out for something that could be usable. You could get a little conversation in bridal prep, or even just like the sound of people getting ready or clinking glasses, things like that you can weave in and out of the music. It just puts them back into that place really well, I think.
Totally. No, that's such a great recommendation. Well, and yeah, because I'm trying to think of, and I've maybe done, did I do one wedding film? I helped with one wedding film, and a lot of the ones I've watched, like you said, are kind of this like slideshow, almost music video, like kind of just like showing things with a particular song. Okay, another question I have too, because I'm curious, like if you have that sound design, like professional background, do you use like any professional, like do you use Logic when you're working in Final Cut Pro, or like do you use anything in that space? Or I'm just kind of curious about that too.
I am a Cubase lady. Because I used to sort of go between Windows and Mac quite often, so I ended up with a station that I could use on both. And again, it's kind of like Final Cut, where I've just found it the most efficient, the most user-friendly, it doesn't get in the way. So yeah, if there's anything that I need tweaking that Final Cut doesn't like do for me, I can whack it in Cubase and use the EQs and stuff in there.
Is there some examples there? So you mentioned EQ. Like, what are some of the things you do in Cubase that Final Cut can't? I always love hearing those tidbits too.
Do you know, I blooming hate the EQs in Final Cut. I think I just find the whole interface a little bit annoying. So using it in Cubase, where you have sort of, I know you can get the full 30 channels in Final Cut, but having that where you can use the sort of like the tone curves, I guess, in a photo way, but for the audio, I find like if I need to scoop out the low end or roll off the top end, using sort of that sort of visual aid, I just find a hell of a lot easier than using, we need to dip down this specific frequency. It's like, no, I'd rather see it a little bit bigger, and so Cubase is a hell of a lot better for that.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's so true. Oh, I love talking to audio nerds.
If you are good at video editing, you will find that all of the skills are really transferable, whether I'm editing a photo or a song or a video. It's all about making space in the mix for things, removing distractions. It's all a very similar thought process, just in a different medium.
Well, and again, there's such an entanglement there because you're also using both, like in the same, like, I don't know. I mean, there is good edits without music. I'm struggling to think if I could say there's good edits without sound design. There probably is, but like, they are in bed with each other, and it is so important to know both pieces for sure. Is Cubase track based then, right? Because Final Cut's obviously got some funky magnetic stuff going on. Because I guess this is what's interesting, and I totally agree with you. And I guess I'm trying to see if there's any additional thoughts on your end from the way that you put audio into Final Cut and the way that it interacts with each other, and the fact that stuff just kind of all fits together is like just brilliant. I love that. But then I'm with you. There's a lot of kind of the tweaking side of it that I feel leaves a lot to be desired, and that's kind of what you're talking about with Cubase. Like, do you have any thoughts there, or things that you run into that you've had to kind of come up with workarounds for, or yeah, just hit me with some of that.
Yeah, so for a lot of my videos, I do sort of two styles where it's a little bit more story based, and then sometimes it's just me going out with the camera and having fun and sharing my experience. So a lot of it is more basic with sound design, but then if I do want to take on a bigger project like the Faroe Islands video that I did with my dad, it is sort of like matching every clip in sort of a piece of B-roll. Like, this is a waterfall clip, how can we add in sounds to make the audience feel it in that way? And most of the time you can do it in Final Cut just by layering things. But yeah, I think Cubase is more handy for getting technical, like cleaning up audio in certain ways, rather than mixing it down in my sort of video editing realm anyway.
And that's a great segue. Let's talk about that Faroe Islands video, because we had, I think, ahead of time, when I was asking a couple of questions before we got started, I said, what is an edit that you are super proud of? And that was the one you said, which, let me see, what was the official title? It was like photographing the Faroe Islands with my dad, or I think.
Yeah, it's such a cute story because my dad's a landscape photographer and he always wanted to go to the Faroe Islands, and it was back in the day before the internet, where he was even like writing to the tourist board and getting the pamphlets, and he was planning the trip, and then my mum got pregnant and it just kind of got put on the back burner for years and years and years. So I was like, right, we're getting him to the Faroe Islands, we're going to go and have a photography nerdy sort of 2 weeks together, and I just wanted to document the whole experience.
No, the story was brilliant, and that's kind of like the opening shot and scene that you had with the voiceover and kind of the stop motion of the old photographs and all of that. Like, again, why I love YouTube editors so much is you are a part of that entire process. So like, how much of this video was did you do pre-production for? How much of it was scripted? Like, how much of the edit were you pretty confident in before you went and shot it? Or like, what did you go do the trip and then a lot of this was found in post? I'm so curious.
So I tried to split up the video with a couple of like little interview bits with my dad, and it worked out so well because we were stuck in the car waiting for it to stop raining for half of the time. So I just sort of put the little road mics on us and I was asking him questions about photography, and I wanted to make it feel a little bit nostalgic. So I had like this janky old camcorder that I bought off eBay for 30 quid, and I was just trying to make some informal snippets of the holiday, and I sort of put that over the interview footage, and then there is a stop motion for each of the bits as well. So those bits were sort of set in stone before I went, but then the story was sort of dictated by whatever my dad sort of came up with when I was talking to him.
I was actually going to ask you about that because yeah, the old camcorder style footage, I was like, is that old footage from your dad? Is that footage you captured, or was that footage you did in post? So you did buy a dedicated camcorder and actually brought it with you.
I did, yeah. I just thought it would add to it, with the whole idea that like all of this missed time that he could have gone to this place. So I wanted to make it feel quite nostalgic while he was talking about it.
Another question I had was on the choice of like the chapters, right? Like there was a very sort of almost, I don't know if listicle is the right word, but that's kind of what's coming to mind, is just this, here's kind of the goals, here's what we're accomplishing. Again, I'm assuming that all came out after you guys got back, right? It's like, okay, what, except for the sunset one, right? Like you kind of set out ahead of time to get that. So maybe kind of walk me through that choice and how that came to be.
Yeah, so I did the course with Hayden Smith, his editing course. And he was basically like, it was all about pacing, and I was watching it as I was creating the edit for this video, and it came in really handy. So like juxtaposing me saying, we're in like a beautiful landscape place, this shot should be easy, and then juxtaposing it with the clip of like when my dad broke his lens, trying to create conflict and keep people interested in the story. And then towards the end of the holiday, we had a really sunny few days, and I thought that the changing of the season, I could change the pace of the edit and sort of put a faster paced, brighter music, so it wasn't all just moody, and trying to do it in different chapters of pacing like he was saying in his course, and I think it worked quite well.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved that choice of like the contrast between here's kind of what I'm thinking will happen, and then here's kind of like the lens breaking. Or there was a couple of others where, you interjected like funny moments. Like, I'm trying to remember what you were saying leading up to it, but then again, my brain remembers the shot of the tub with the crane.
That was so funny. Yeah,
just these quick things of like, here, we hit you with this.
I was just kind of saying, I want some nice lifestyle images of what it's like on the islands. And then we ended up on this boat with the locals. It was like a delivery boat, and there was just a crane with a bathtub. And I just thought, well, I didn't anticipate it being a funny photo, but at least it's authentic.
Well, and as a viewer, that style really felt like a really fun mixture of, because I feel like that kind of interjection is a very YouTube editing thing. But again, within the style of the video and everything leading up to it, even the way you executed it, it felt very like tasteful documentary. Like, it was just it was the coolest blend I think I've seen of, oh, here's kind of the YouTube funny moment to contradict what I'm saying, which feels very like YouTube-y. But then it was like, well, but it's still like, feels like a documentary. I don't know. You just like towed that line perfectly. And I thought that was such a good choice. I loved it so much because it didn't feel, maybe tacky is the right word. I don't know. It just felt like perfectly done.
Oh, thank you. That's exactly what
It was funny too. I was laughing.
This is good news.
On that video as well, I really, really, really loved the decision to do the montage at the beginning, right? Like, we kind of have the tee up, which was the, hey, here's what my dad always wanted. Then I was born, and then he never got to go. And then again, that montage with the upbeat music, really kind of teasing a lot of other moments. I thought it was a great choice. And yeah, I mean, to the viewers and people kind of curious about storytelling and editing, like, what was the thought process there also?
So I think because I knew it would be sort of a longer video, and I'm asking my audience a lot to like care about this story of my dad who they've never met before. I wanted to just show some banger clips right up front and something really high energy to show them what was in store for the rest of the video. Sort of like, stick around, we're going on a speedboat, there's waterfalls, my drone got to get attacked by a bird. There's lots of things coming up.
I was so hooked. Well, and it was so funny too, and this is kind of maybe like a total side tangent, but again, when I was asking you about the one you were most proud of, you were like, this one. And of course it tanked, right? Like, you were like, oh, it didn't do very well.
Yeah.
But again, personally, like, as soon as I watched that video, I was just like, I'm hooked. I'm here for the whole thing. Like, the storytelling's great, the montage, the tee up, the hook. Man, the algorithm is a fickle beast sometimes.
No, I really appreciate that. I think as a creative person on the platform, I think if you become a slave to the algorithm, it becomes very stale. So I've got to inject it with some passion projects and push my own skills a little bit so it doesn't become too formulaic. Because sometimes, a lot of my videos have a very similar structure, whereas this one was just completely different. And I just wanted to see, hey, how much have I learned over the years? Let's push myself and see what I can do. I think even though that video of mine tanked in the sense that it got maybe 10,000 views instead of 50 or whatever I usually get, the comments have all been really sweet. Like, I've had so many people saying, I've just had a daughter myself, and I can't wait to teach her about photography. This brought a tear to my eye. I wish I'd have done this with my dad, and unfortunately we can't anymore. So it's nice, you can connect with a smaller amount of people, but you still connect in a more meaningful way. If you're doing it authentically.
Yes, and just like you said, those comments are like so much more worth it. Like, you just feel like you've struck a human chord, right? And yeah, there's no better feeling. Well, and it was kind of funny because I also, in my research and again, just kind of curious about stats and nerdy stuff, as far as I could tell, your most viewed video is the best like budget camera video. Like that thing is cranking. And it's kind of funny because like your Faroe Islands video kind of had the stop motion start, and so did that one. And I think obviously, I mean, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I think the subject matter is obviously fantastic. Everyone's curious about that with all the pocket camera rage and all of that. Everyone's wanting to get in on that, so that's definitely part of it. But I mean, the stop motion hook you did in editing with all of the different lenses, I was just like, man, I'm immediately like, oh, she's spending some time here. This is fantastic. Like, what was your, just walk me through your choices there and kind of what you were thinking.
So that video, it's hilarious actually. I think it's got like 250,000 views, and it's set up the whole tiny camera series that completely made my channel go in a bigger direction. And I had a sponsorship commitment in the month of December, and the weather was atrocious. So I just sat down and was like, what video can I make right now where I don't have to leave the house? And it came together in a couple of days, and I literally delivered it on the 31st of the month. So it was like, just got my sponsorship in time. And I thought, well, at least I can make up for it with some stop motion and do something a little bit fancier in the office. And just this, taking my overthinking out of the equation actually created the most like popular video I've ever done. It's so silly.
Man, isn't that crazy? That's so awesome. I love that. It's so fun to hear that too, because it's just like, oh, wow, like, you know, I'm sitting here like, man, that was such a cool choice. It hooked me in immediately. And you're like, I was just trying to come up with something, you know? And it's like, gosh, creativity is just beautiful.
Yeah, it's so funny. I just felt guilty for not leaving the office and not putting as much effort in as usual. So I was like, right, I'm going to do a stop motion of all my lenses, and it's going to be funny. And that's what I'm going with. And if it tanks, it tanks. And then it literally changed everything. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but it's basically the thing that sort of changed the whole channel, which is mad.
Dang, very cool. I also wanted to ask you about, and you had mentioned this again when we were chatting, you said that you take like immense pride in really prioritizing your audience's time. And I wanted to hear more of your thoughts on that, right? Like when you sit down to edit, what are some of your tactics? What advice would you give to someone just starting out to prioritize the audience's time? What does that mean and why?
I think it's so important. I think particularly if someone's clicking on your video for the first time, you know, you want to give them what they clicked for straight away and meet those expectations. So for me, that means I never introduce myself in a video. I never ask for a like or a subscribe. I never, you know, stick around for more or anything like that. It's like, this is what the thumbnail is. This, within the first 20 seconds or less, this is what you get. And even down to like hard cutting every or every break and trying to hide them with B-roll as much as possible. I tried to keep things quite pacey because I think you owe it to the audience to not waste their time, and I want it to be as concise as possible.
Do you script your stuff then, out of curiosity, or do you go off the cuff?
A little bit in the middle. I tend to work off bullet points. So I just sort of reference it on my phone usually. And then over the years, I've just got quite good at just talking off the cuff. And I think the audience likes that because I'm a little bit silly sometimes. Sometimes things go a little bit on a tangent. And I think if you want a spec list or something that's completely polished, that's what Google's for. You know, I like to be personality driven and inject as much of that in as I can, but without wasting anyone's time.
No, and I totally feel that. And I think it is absolutely a strength of like a pillar of your channel is like there's just this authentic Emily voice that comes through. And like you said, there's probably some people who can script it, but I do think that it is pretty hard to script just like the funny, like, oh, I thought of this just in the moment and I'm just going to kind of, riff basically. And it's interesting because, and I don't know, I guess I would ask you too, I usually tend to tell people who are getting into it to try scripting first so that they have that real focus, they get practice doing reps with the camera, and then in the edit, there's not nearly as much stuff that they got to worry about, right? Because and I ran into this trap early on where I didn't script, and I would just like, look back at old videos and I'm like, man, the skill of like having the hubris to cut so much of this was not there yet, and I just left in so many terrible things. But so maybe I should have been scripting, but then I feel less authentic. But I guess my thought is, if you start with the scripting, get those reps in, start to become more comfortable, and then, like you're saying, go to more bullet points, get loose, start to interject your personality, because then you've probably also grown that skill of cutting out the gaps, cutting out the putting in B-roll, maybe even taking a whole section and just being like, no, it's out of here. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I'd be curious if how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think it's different for each person, because some people will be, they're a little bit more long-winded in the way that they explain things, and sometimes it might be that they're too brief, and there's a little bit of a knowledge gap if you don't script it a little bit more. So I think that's good advice, actually. Script it a few times and see how you feel on camera. Or even if you went the bullet point approach, film it twice. Like, I was so blooming shy when I started. I must have filmed videos 10 times and deleted them, because I was just like, no one can see this. But it's empowering. You only need to like put something out there when you're comfortable with it. So yeah, I think talking to the camera with the letting yourself off the hook and being like, you can delete this at any point, will get you there faster. And also just, you will put bad videos up. I've put terrible videos up. I've had videos where I'm out of focus. I've had all kinds of terrible things. And I just think it's all part of learning on YouTube, and looking back and seeing that you've improved is a really good feeling.
It's weird to be in an era where you're learning can be seen by anyone, right? Like, mm-hmm. Pre-YouTube, all of that learning could kind of happen in silence, where like, hey, this video that I made, it's on my hard drive on my home computer. Like, maybe my mom and dad could see it or whatever, but like no one else can, right? And so it is interesting where it's like, maybe people could do that or be empowered to do that. Like you're saying, delete stuff, but also, I don't know, I still encourage people to like you said, just go for it. It's not going to be good. It's going to take time, and that's okay.
Yeah. You don't pick up a guitar and you're like, bang, I can play straight away. There's no other skill in life where you're expected to be amazing at it straight away. And I think it's really endearing watching creators as they grow, because I think it's a human connection. And as long as you have a human connection with the audience, it doesn't matter whether the editing isn't there yet or whatever isn't there yet, because you're endeared to the character of the person.
Well, even our favorite that we talked about earlier, Gox, I don't think I've gotten through his whole discography, but I was just curious, and I went back and watched some of his old stuff, and like, he's been pretty good for a long time. Like, I'm not saying they were bad, but some of his previous videos, it's like, no, like, man, he's even really 2-3x'd the overall polish that we see nowadays from even back then. And again, it's not that it was bad, but it was just like, everyone grows, everyone learns. And so like, even before, there was a time where he was probably bad, like it happens. And just like you're saying, you gotta just try to find that journey. As someone who's been doing this for a while, you said 7 years, is there, I guess it could be anything YouTube related, because I'm not opposed to that, but I guess first I'll say editing related. Is there any tips you would give, again, to someone who's starting into this journey? Maybe it'll save them a couple days of headache. Like, is there anything in the editing space, firstly, and then secondly, is there anything maybe in the wider YouTube space that you would tell someone?
Yeah, one skill that I've learned over time is record your intro and your outro, but 90% of the time you could just blooming cut them. Nobody, you've got to get it out your system. You're like, hi, I'm here, this is what we're doing. But then just cut it in the edit. And if you can give, satisfy the audience until the very end of the video, and then just leave them wanting more. Don't be like, thank you so much for watching, or lead them on to a second video so that you can create a session, binge session with them. Don't squander those, because that's where your attention will go, either at the very beginning or at the very end, I've found.
Is there anything else, like specifically YouTube, that you would be like, don't sleep on this?
Yeah, I think you have to know what your advantages are in this game. And if you try to emulate somebody else's style, you're only going to be as like the second best at that. For me, I'm a little bit ditzy. I'm not too spec bound. I'm more, here's the cool thing. Here's what I think we could do with it that's exciting. Find out what makes you unique and just double, triple down on it, because it is a more saturated space than it ever was. And most people, it's in most people's ability to have a polished background or good audio or a good script. It's you and the unique part that makes it your video that makes you stand out.
Virtual high five. I think that was so well said. And God, I could not agree with it more, because I just think that, especially too in an age, and again, I hate getting down the AI rabbit hole, because it's just like such a topic, but like in an age where the easy, polished creation keeps being so much more democratized and accessible, it's like, just like you said, you have to lean into what your humanity, right? Mm-hmm. Like that is, which again, and as a fan of your channel, that's what I love. Like, that's what I love about an Emily video, is just like, oh, that was a funny joke, or oh, that cut to that was funny, or I love, this little tidbit here, or whatever. Like, those are the things that stick in my brain, not the, super finessed whatever. So, oh man, you're dealing with Jake Chaos Brain. I jump all over the place. I apologize, but I do have a very funny question for you. Super nitty gritty specific. So in your videos, obviously you're taking lots of photographs, and I love them too. When you flash up a picture you want to show in the video, you got to have a little shutter click. Is that a shutter you have recorded yourself, or is that a sound effect you found online? And what makes a good shutter click?
This is very embarrassing. I lean on the Final Cut default library much too much. It's camera click number 2.
Yes. Yeah. It's punchy, though. It's punchy and fast. It's a great sound.
I like the sound, yeah.
There's no reason to be embarrassed for that. Are you kidding me? That's awesome. I love that answer.
Outside of the Final Cut library, the reason I like Soundstripe is they do have a sound effects library, and I'm also subscribed to Envato Elements, so they do sort of graphics and sound effects and stuff. So yeah, there's plenty out there if I need something.
Yeah, definitely not sponsored, but I love Envato, because they just have everything. It's kind of stupid, like, that I hadn't found it sooner. Like, they should be advertising everywhere, because it just kind of has way too much good stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
Envato, you should pay me some money.
And me.
And Emily. It's okay. We'll give you this one for free, but maybe come talk to us next time. And this was another nerdy question I had for voiceover, which definitely seems like something you like. I guess I'm kind of curious, your thoughts on it, because in my opinion, well, let me give some context. I think voiceover is just fantastic. And I've actually heard some controversial opinions through like some film school people or whatever, that like, oh, voiceover is just a crutch to cover up mistakes or whatever. And I'm like, I guess that's one way to look at it. I mean, sure, that is often what I'm doing with it, but I kind of don't like that opinion or whatever. So I'm curious how you feel about voiceover. And then do you go in with a lot of like planned voiceover moments, or is it truly like, oh, I need this, let's throw that in there, or just, yeah, walk me through that, because you use it and I love it.
So when I go out, say if I'm reviewing an old camera, for instance, as part of the Tiny Camera series, I always go out with the intention of getting as much out and about and on location as possible, talking through the thought processes and stuff. But because I do a lot of street photography, sometimes the moment's come and gone before I could talk to camera. And in those instances, I think it is helpful for me to still include the thought process, but do it afterwards with some B-roll of me shooting. Sometimes it's just not feasible to do it in and amongst the action. So yeah, I think, yeah, sometimes it's a mixture of I need it because I need to explain something and I didn't get a chance to do it. But sometimes I think it's quite nice as well, because I think people are interested in sort of the thought process of why I took that picture and why it worked or didn't.
Well, yeah, and like you said, you usually, at least I've noticed, it's something that comes in with kind of the street photography or out in the action elements of your videos, which is, it makes total sense. It's an absolute tool in your tool belt to make sure people don't miss what happened. With the POV street photography style of video, I love them. They're so relaxing. They're so fun. And you're not the only person who's done them, which is what's so interesting. Like, there's clearly a place for them on the internet. Like, what makes those, in your opinion, A, so good? Like, why do you think we like them? And then B, how do you edit something like that? Because I think editing is really important for those videos as well. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts there.
I think when I'm watching somebody else's video like that, and I see the scene that's presented to them, I think, how would I photograph that? And then I think it's fascinating seeing everyone's different approach. I think there's always something to learn, because you could have 5 different photographers in exactly the same place and they'd come up with loads of different compositions. In terms of editing, I'm not one of these that can leave it going for like 45 minutes. I'm not that sort of channel. Going back to me valuing people's time, I know that people love to sit and chill and put them on the TV and watch that. But I just think a little bit of a lead up, a couple of seconds to show the scene is enough to sort of get the point across without it being a little bit too indulgent.
Okay, so when I asked you if the Faroe Islands was your favorite place you had photographed, I'm assuming, again, there's a lot of the, like, emotional attachment there with the trip and going with your dad, obviously, like, not trying to belittle that, because obviously that's why it's the greatest trip, but like, is there maybe a second favorite or another place that you were like really surprised by, that you just got like great pictures that I love hearing recommendations, because I love going places too.
So Seattle in autumn was gorgeous. It's a place that I've always wanted to visit, and seeing it sort of at its best, and going to the market and seeing the Space Needle, I was fangirling all over the place, and it was a great place for street photography as well. It was beautiful. Before
we started recording, we were talking about, because I just got the S5 II, and I just, and you were talking about the G9 too, and the autofocus. Having shot Lumix so long, you're a Lumix ambassador as well, right? Man, it's so exciting to shoot Lumix right now, and I'm just kind of curious, to hear some of your thoughts there. I was also giving the background of not, I was using the S5, didn't have autofocus, and now there's phase detect autofocus. It's just, man, the cameras are so good. They're so good.
They're so good. I mean, I'm not an official ambassador. I don't even think they do have ambassadors, but they've just noticed what I've been doing with the YouTube channel, and they've been like, yes, come to this launch. Here is a new camera for you to test. And it's really nice to have the support of the brand that you've genuinely picked and used for years and years and years. I love the colour science and the ease of use, but the one thing that they were always lacking was the autofocus. Now that's fixed. I'm completely biased, but I don't know why people choose other cameras. They're affordable. They're just so good and so user-friendly.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see the next couple of years what happens, because for a long time it was well, they're so good at everything and they're cheaper, but the autofocus thing is kind of a pain in the butt. And now that they finally fixed that, it's man, I'm with you. I struggle to recommend anything else, because it's you can get so much bang for your buck. And like you said, I'm not really good at color grading. Vlog with a conversion LUT, I add a little bit of saturation, a little extra contrast from the LUT that they give on their website. And as long as I've got my white balance correct, I usually am just wow, that looks great. And that's huge for me, because I hate color grading.
Same. Yeah, it makes it so much easier. It really does. And one thing I really value about that brand, not to get too nerdy, is they are so generous with firmware. You get a camera and you get support for years and years and years. They don't force you to buy the next one. They give you all the cool features included, because they value you as a customer. And I think it's very cool.
Well, and I think I posted this yesterday. I was just I bought the S5 II, And like, I haven't taken the kit lens off of it, like, because of the dual native ISO, the stabilization, like all of those features just culminate to like that kit lens is freaking brilliant. I love
Yeah.
it. It has no right being that good.
No, I totally agree. I had the S1, the first full frame one that they brought out, and it came with the 24 to 104 105 f4, so it was the fancy pants stock lens, and it's bigger and it's heavier, and I'm like, I'm never taking that off the camera. And then I got the cheaper one with the S5 Mark II, and I'm like, it's half the size and it's still amazing. Yeah, it's so good.
You wouldn't think it would be much of a difference because, yeah, I have the 24 to 105 as well, but that 24 to 20 difference is massive. Like, you can actually film yourself somewhat comfortably, and I've noticed recently the minimum focus distance is insane. Like, it's not macro, but at 20 mil you can get right up on stuff, and man, it is just a fun look. I really really like it.
Yeah, it's great. And the primes are so great as well. I'm shooting on the 18 mil prime now. Woo! I love that they're all the same size. They're all relatively affordable. No focus breathing. Yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm a Lumix nerd.
I love asking you about camera stuff because that's your language, right? Like, I'm feeling like I want to make sure to hit like the things that you're super excited about too, because it's awesome. So is there anything else kind of in that space that you'd want to talk about or share about, or I don't know?
I'm actually getting into a little bit of film photography at the minute. I'm going to do a little bit of a segue
Really?
on my channel and document my process. And I've got all the chemicals to sort of develop my own stuff at home because I'm a cheapskate and I'm not paying like £20 a roll. So yeah, that could be a fun little avenue for content in the coming months.
Well, yeah. Now we're all going to be on the edge of our seat. That's awesome. The angle too of developing it yourself is very interesting because I'm trying to think of any of the people that have gotten into it recently. I don't know that I've seen, at least personally, someone that's developing it themselves. Oh my gosh. Okay. When's that stuff coming out?
So it's also arriving today, all of my chemicals. I've got my little mini dark room so I can load the film, and I've got like a Lightbox macro lens adapter to scan the negatives using a macro lens. So yeah, I'm excited. It could completely tank, but I'm hoping, it could be, people like photography, whether it's analog or digital. It could work well. There's lots of different tiny cameras I could review.
If that's what's calling to you right now, like I just keep feeling more and more that like if something's speaking to me, I need to not ignore that to the best of my ability, even if maybe it's not lining up with what people want necessarily, because it might, like on the flip side, it could absolutely be like the next thing, or it just might, be a new passion, and maybe the times will catch up or whatever the case may be. Like, you just never know. And dang, I'm so excited for that. Okay. Well, the Jake Felzine crew got a teaser on what's to come, and that is super exciting because I will be eagerly awaiting.
Yeah. I love and abide by the TourBox. Hashtag not sponsored, but I take that everywhere to edit quickly.
Yes, tell me. Oh, great. I love this. This is like nerdy Jake explosion. What? What's great about it? I've been looking at it for so long. I even, like, for DaVinci, I bought the speed editor, which I don't think it doesn't feel the same. It's too big. Like, what is it? How does it work? Give me some pitches on why I need to spend more money, because I keep looking at that one.
Yes, I'll pop it to camera. This is the TourBox in question, and it's filthy because I use it all the time. I apologise. So first and foremost, it's perfectly hand shaped and really ergonomic. So you've got a little button on every hand, and you can do different combinations. And I just love where it's like I can turn it into the blade, into the arrow. I can delete. I can time stretch things all with one preset. And the thing about the TourBox that I like is I suppose most of them will be, but it's completely customizable. Like, you can download a preset for a Final Cut or Lightroom or Photoshop or Cubase, and you can customize it yourself. And I just find it speeds everything up so much. yeah, I'm a big fan of TourBox. Not sponsored.
Yeah, because it's my biggest question, and again, I love that I have someone who's actually used it, is like, because it's not first party Final Cut accessory, like how is the responsiveness? Is it wired? Is it wireless? That part I don't know.
So there's two. I've had it for like 5 years or more, I think. I've got the USB-C one, but they've brought out a wireless one now. They've caught up.
So it feels like really responsive and all of that.
Yeah, it takes, there's a little bit of a learning curve. If you tried it for a couple of days, it might slow you down. But then once you've got it, it's like, it's just, I can just go. It really speeds up my editing a heck of a lot.
Do you stick it, which hand do you use it with? Is it supposed to be used with like your mouse hand or your keyboard hand?
So it's supposed to be a left hand, so it stays on there. And then on the right hand side, I've got a mouse and a trackpad. I find the mouse to be more accurate, but then the trackpad for zooming in and out quickly. So I've got a whole little station.
Oh, I love that. You got like 3 separate input steering command center things. That's awesome.
And even on the TourBox, when you choose to like color and effects in Final Cut, or you want to do angles, or you want to do multicam, I've assigned them all to individual buttons. So it's just like, phew, let me just color grade this real quick, phew, back to normal view. And it's, you feel like a boss when you use it.
Man, we're getting, this is right up my alley. So you open up angles. Obviously, I'm doing a lot of angle cutting lately. You open up angles and then you can still have buttons assigned to like 1, 2, or 3 and that.
Yep. I've got 1 and 2 here. That's my angles 1 and 2. There's spinny dials. It's all very ergonomic. You can do all kinds with it.
Yeah, hashtag not sponsored, but
hashtag not sponsored. I reviewed it about 5 years ago. And yeah, I've used it ever since. It's so cool. And the software is great. If I open Lightroom, it automatically changes the presets to my Lightroom presets. If I open Cubase, it changes to that profile. So I've got custom clicks for every single piece of software that I use.
And when you say open, that's just like whatever you're clicked on? Like you can have them all open at the same time, or do you have to actually kill the program?
So you open up the TourBox software and you preset all the things, and then if I switch from Final Cut to Photoshop, it will automatically know that I'm in Photoshop and put my Photoshop layout automatically onto the device. It's so cool.
You keep going. You keep selling me even more.
Hashtag not sponsored.
I was sold like three points back. Hashtag not sponsored. Yeah.
In terms of peripherals, that is my absolute favourite. And I think it's probably quite standard across the board, but I do think I need 2 monitors to be sane on Final Cut. I need one for my timeline and one for my viewer. Oh, I do have, the AR glasses. So like when I'm on a plane, I can dual monitor and put like a 75-inch OLED in my eyeballs and edit that way. It's really, really cool.
Like not the Vision Pros, but just like the display. I can't remember what they're called. I think I've seen them, but just the display extenders.
Yeah. So the X-Real 2 Pros, they don't need a battery pack. It just looks like glasses, and there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can have it to mirror your screen, or you can have it to have up to 3 virtual screens pinned in place and your existing screen. So when I'm on planes and stuff, or if I'm in a coffee shop and I want to get out of the house and do some editing, I just take my glasses and my TourBox and I'm away.
No, that sounds like a sweet setup. Okay, so with the 2 monitor thing in Final Cut, I'm trying to remember all the different options without having it open. Again, it's like always second nature, but what are you having on each screen when you do that?
So I've assigned them to my TourBox. This is getting so nerdy. But when I'm doing like a quick cut, I have the timeline on my wide angle monitor. I've got, 27-inch wide-inch monitor. And because the colour accuracy is better on my MacBook Pro screen, I'll do the colour grading on that one versus the big one. So I'll just swap them around depending on what part of the process I'm in.
Dang, and you have it on the TourBox, making it easier to switch them. That's brilliant. What computer, you said MacBook, are you using a new MacBook to edit on? What are you rocking there? And I mean, again, like anything lately is insane, but
I've had to open it to check. It's a 2021 16-inch M1 Pro with 16 gig of RAM, and I wish I'd have upgraded that, because sometimes I do hit that ceiling if I have a lot of plugins. Like I use Cinema Grade and a lot of the M plugins like MCam and Roto and stuff like that.
It's so funny because the 16 gigs you can get away with murder compared to when they were on Intel chips. But you're right, I do think, because I've bought a new one a year or two ago and went 32, and I was like, man, I'm glad I did that. But man, I've loved this conversation. I'm again so thankful and so glad that you wanted to do this. Like I just keep I keep getting so tickled that anyone wants to do this at all, right? It's just like each time it feels like the excitement and euphoria should wear off, and then I have another one and I'm like, I just love nerding out with people. It's so much fun.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing, and I think it's a great resource for up and coming creators to hear what it's like going slowly insane editing every day.
Well, hey, Emily, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really, really loved this conversation and getting to know you better, and just, man, so many nerdy things were hit today, which is what I'm all about. And I just want to make sure before we wrap things up today to make sure people know where they can find you, because we need more Emily fans in the world. So where are those places?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is called Micro for Nerds, and I have a microfornerds.com blog, and on Instagram I'm Emily May Lowry. I probably should have chose Micro for Nerds, but hey.
We're big fans over here at the Jake Felzine channel, and I will see you guys in the next conversation. Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.